Welcome to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and together we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today we've invited some of Iowa's experts in substance abuse prevention and treatment to take a look at the risks Iowa's children face today. As early as middle school and even elementary school children are exposed to dangerous drugs and substances. They may in fact know more about these things than their parents. That is something that needs to change. As parents and caregivers, you need to start the conversation about substance abuse at an early age, and you need to know what you're talking about. Let's meet the experts that are going to help put you in the know. Matt, Shirley, Jennifer, welcome. Let's get to know you. Matt, tell us a little bit about why you're here and what you do.
Thanks for inviting us today, Peter, for doing this. My name's Matt Rocca. I'm the program manager at St. Luke's Chemical Dependency Services, and I've been doing that work at St. Luke's in this role for about 12 years now. And I like to also emphasize that I've been doing the work, listening to families struggling with addiction and their family members, listening to patients and family members, going on 25 years in the Cedar Rapids and Iowa City corridor area. So in this area, you know, we like to really emphasize, we kind of have a good sense on what's going on in our area. So thanks again for having me.
Good, we look forward to learning about some of that. Shirley.
Hi, I'm Shirley Schneider. I'm the Adult Outpatient Director with the Area Substance Abuse Council in Cedar Rapids. And I've been practicing or in the substance abuse field for 22 years and working with both adolescents and adults. And I think this is an opportunity for us to inform the community about what the needs of youth are and what families are needing.
Yeah, we do know that adults are a great snapshot for what the future holds.
Great.
So we're going to use that information, try and learn more about what we can do to help children. So appreciate having you here today. Jennifer, welcome.
Thanks for having me as well. I'm Jennifer Hoosman. I also work with the Area Substance Abuse Council, but in prevention. So I'm a project coordinator and a prevention specialist. And I actually just recently started working for the Iowa Alliance of Coalitions for Change, and I have for past 15 years also worked with ASAC and the Jones County Safe and Healthy Youth Coalition.
Well, thank you. Welcome to the show. Matt, give us a little overview of what you're seeing is happening with substance abuse in Iowa, because we hear so many different things about different threats and things that are happening.
Sure.
And you know, it's something that, it's sort of sad that we have to deal with so many of these challenges.
Well, I would say one of the things that we're seeing even today is what we've seen for a very long time. There's really a lot of similarities with the work that we do that I remember seeing first coming into this field 25 years ago, and still what we're seeing today. People are using substances, whether it's an adult, a teen, or an adolescent, for usually one of two reasons. They're using it to cope with something. They just don't like a sensation or a feeling, an emotion, a physical reaction. They don't like it, they're uncomfortable with it, so they're using to feel different. Or they're using to have fun. Okay, they're using it intentionally to allow themselves and their mind to have more fun. So what we've seen then, what we've seen now is really similar for the reasons why people are entering treatment. They're having problems associated with using it as a coping mechanism or just using it to increase their having fun.
Now, Shirley, Matt mentioned the idea of having fun, but I guess when we look at the treatment side, fun is probably the wrong word, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they're looking for excitement or relieving boredom, or it just becomes part of their normal experience or activity is using substances. Once they introduce that to their lifestyle, and then it just grows from there. Their friendships change, their interests change, and so it becomes a lifestyle.
Is it fair to look at it as somehow filling a void in people's lives when they look to substances? Is that one good way for people to sort of understand it?
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's, like Matt said, it's managing emotions, dealing with stress in their lives, not really having the skills to manage those things, and those things are learned early on when they're youth. And if that's missing, then they fall back on old patterns, and for a lot of people, that's substance use.
So Jennifer, in your experience in prevention, do you really get involved in a lot of the dynamics of families and kids in school and things like that when you look at the programs you're trying to implement?
Yeah, well, we're certainly working on building resilience now. We know a lot of children have had adverse childhood experiences, and that, you know, again, like we talked about, some of the reasons why they use substances. I mean, there's other reasons now too, besides having fun too. I think that some substances are targeting children. Like we've come so far with the smoking issue, and then now we're having this vaping issue. So we're having an extreme increase in that issue, which, some is kids trying to have fun, but some of it is.
And marijuana may be targeting children too.
That's right. That's right. So, yeah. So we're definitely trying to do what we can to build resilience, so they want to stay away from that stuff.
Well, that's a great point. Well, thank you very much, and we'll come back after the break. We're going to continue the conversation about children, drugs, and substance abuse. You don't want to miss this. See you after the break.
AT&T loves to talk about their 1 gig internet, but you can't get it at Beth's house or John's house. It's not available in JoJo's neighborhood or within 100 miles of the Smith family. The truth is, AT&T 1 gig isn't for everyone. Make sure you have access to the fastest. Switch to Mediacom Extreme and get the future-forward speed you need from the 100% gigabit technology network, the fastest for everyone.
1 gig is the future, and Mediacom provides the most complete coverage. America's first 100% 1 gig technology network, offering gigabit speeds in every market we serve. In town or out of town, big city or rural, you've got access to the fastest. We know the future will demand more speed, so we've built a network to give you the most. 1,500 communities, 2.7 million homes, 100% 1 gig.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking about the continuing substance abuse crisis in Iowa and what you need to know to protect your children and family. Matt, let's start with you. Let's hear about what are some of the high-risk drugs that we're seeing out here today.
Sure. And I think a lot of people these days, especially in Iowa, across the country, there's a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion, certainly about what we're seeing with opioids in that class, whether it's heroin or the prescription drugs. And that's certainly very serious and significant. The data I think that we've heard and seen for years now, coming out of 2017, was roughly about 40,000 individuals that deceased associated with using opioids. But what we don't want to forget about in our world is that twice as many people had an experience with alcohol resulting in death also. So from a treatment perspective, we want to make sure that we always remember, let's not forget about what we've seen for years, which is alcohol is just as serious, if not more serious, than any other substance out there with the negativity it can have on individuals' lives.
So there are some particular trends in terms of adult use. We know that adults that are admitted to treatment for substance abuse disorders have certain preferences. What are those? What do you see in the adult population that they're using most?
A lot of the admissions are for alcohol and marijuana. But as far as a growing trend is methamphetamine. Methamphetamine has always been a concern in Iowa and has gotten maybe less press than maybe the opiate problems in the United States. But locally, methamphetamine is increasing. The method of manufacturing is different, and it's being shipped into the United States and into Iowa. It's
now,
more potent.
Isn't an adult user more of a user of opportunity, what's available? Is that something that's true, or are there drugs that really just are much more addictive?
I believe there are some substances that are more addictive, and those are the legal ones, the ones that, like methamphetamine or opiates, that affect the brain differently and are more likely to produce an addiction. And so how you treat that person may be a little different than someone with alcohol or a marijuana use problem.
So we know that for adults, the drugs of choice are more alcohol and meth. What else would we put in that mix?
I would say marijuana.
And marijuana, okay. Now we see early use in children, and this is something we want to ask you about as well, is we see a different drug of choice. We see a number one drug of choice being marijuana.
In treatment. In treatment. Number one is still alcohol.
Still alcohol.
And that's something that we've seen a nice decrease in underage drinking over the last decade or more. But we're starting to see in Iowa a little increase in the middle school age. And it's something I'm really trying to raise awareness, because I don't want to see us, we're talking about other things, and of course we're talking about vaping, we're talking about the increase of methamphetamine and marijuana. And we don't want to forget about that alcohol is still an issue. It's actually in Iowa, we're about second on excessive drinking in Iowa in the nation. And thankfully we're lower in Iowa overall population on drugs. We're about second from the bottom for illegal drugs. So
That's a
so
good testament
alcohol-
to prevention
yeah.
working.
Yeah, we still have a lot of work to do on alcohol, marijuana for sure. Like you said, even the vaping now, so many that are getting ill are, I think it was a vast majority, 85% were THC, vaping. So we've got all those new, interesting emerging. They're not so new, but yeah, the THC it's different than it was. That's for sure.
That's a great point. Matt, I have a question for you. We keep hearing, of course, we know it's not necessarily true, that marijuana is not as bad as alcohol. We know that alcohol is still the biggest problem for youth and adults, probably because it's accessible and very few people worry about it. They don't perceive the risk. But why is there such a huge spike in the number of youth being treated for marijuana addiction? You'd think there'd be more treated for alcohol problems.
Yeah, and it's truly, I think, just the access, those individuals that can be a part of that individual's life, that can help them identify that there is a problem. Those are the people surrounding these youth, these adolescents and these teens. They're going to be able to recognize, yes, this is getting serious. This is something they don't fully understand. This is something that's hitting at a time in their life that they're never going to get back, which is that window when they're going to grow and mature more during that period than any other period in their life. And they're not going to understand that developmentally. And it's our job and it's our role to help them understand that and to get them into treatment where they can really further learn about why they're using and what they need to do different to make those changes.
Shirley, how would you address the question of, say, well, marijuana is not as bad as alcohol, so I feel more comfortable using it or something from a treatment perspective?
Both substances cause consequences in a person's life, whether that's personal, social, developmentally, can affect their ability to learn and to develop skills to manage life without relying on a substance. So while both substances are different and maybe people have different views about how serious they are, both can cause significant impairment in a person's ability to manage.
So the idea that one might be better than the other is really urban mythology.
Yeah.
From a treatment point of view, they're drugs, they're dangerous, and they
Right.
create their own sets of problems.
Right.
Thank you much. We're going to take a closer look at that after the break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at what you can do to help keep your family and community safe. See you after the break.
After the rain stops and the wind dies down, when the fire's gone out and the dust settles, we rise up together and become a force of nature all our own. As part of this community, Mediacom stands with you, doing everything we can not only to restore your service, but to help provide emergency communication access, assist relief efforts, and support our neighbors.
AT&T loves to talk about their 1 gig internet, but you can't get it at Beth's house or John's house. It's not available in JoJo's neighborhood or within 100 miles of the Smith family. The truth is, AT&T 1 gig isn't for everyone. Make sure you have access to the fastest. Switch to Mediacom Extreme and get the future-forward speed you need from the 100% gigabit technology network, the fastest for everyone.
1 gig is the future, and Mediacom provides the most complete coverage. America's first 100% 1 gig technology network, offering gigabit speeds in every market we serve. In town or out of town, big city or rural, you've got access to the fastest. We know the future will demand more speed, so we've built a network to give you the most. 1,500 communities, 2.7 million homes, 100% 1 gig.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm Peter Komendowski, and we're talking with Jennifer, Shirley, and Matt about drugs and substance abuse. And though we're touching on a lot of different threats, they often have things in common that attract children to risky behavior. let's try to identify some things you need to know to manage risks in your home and family, and let's start with prevention. Jennifer, that's your specialty, and you face particular challenges in your community and your schools. What kind of things are working, and what do you see as sort of the future of prevention to help people deal with these challenges?
Well, certainly, if we can, get into middle school age, and talk to them about, life skills and all the great things there are to do instead of using drugs, and ways to cope in life with instead of getting into those types of things, that's great. And as parents, if we can spend more time with our kids, put our phones down, both parents and kids need to do that, and spend more time talking and playing and being outside when the weather's good, or and just be together and listen to your kids. That's super important. We know that builds resiliency from all these things that can be risk factors for them. So
it's sort of the same thing. You're sort of saying that there's a void in children's lives, and that's spending more time doing things with family and friends.
Yeah, and we're seeing the mental health issues rise in Iowa, and that's something. The suicide ideation numbers have, in just the last 2 years between the IOU survey, 16 and 18, it went up. It looked at 13% up to 21% of all grades that were surveyed are thinking about, in the past 12 months, thinking of killing themselves. That's super sad. So we have got to do something different.
Yeah, we need to let parents know that there's a real strong correlation with high-risk behavior like drugs and alcohol and vaping and things like suicide ideation, that they sort of work hand in hand.
Right.
Well, thank you very much. That's a great point. Now, on the treatment side, I have heard that roughly 80% of adults that go into treatment started using drugs or alcohol before they were 18 years of age. Now, if that's in fact true, and I'll ask you to verify that, that means that if we can keep children under age of 18 from doing drugs and alcohol, we can knock out 80% of the problems in the future adults. Does that make sense?
It does. Early, for as long as we've been doing this work, early age of onset has always been a key indicating factor to us. For individuals earlier at the start, they dramatically increase the chances that they're going to develop a problem or addiction with substances. But regardless of what that age is, we really want to try to get to in treatment with them is what their value system is. It's going to be different than ours, different from their parents, different from the people that they're close to, which is fine. But if we can get to them to help them understand what their values are, that will allow us to assist them in making some of these significant changes that are going to be challenging, but it allows us that opportunity to do so. But absolutely, it results in individuals struggling with an addiction later on in life. That's absolutely the progression we've seen. The concept that's classical, the gateway concept, is one that we don't ignore. We think that that's real, that individuals that start off, that end up in substance abuse treatment, struggling with cocaine or methamphetamine, didn't start off using that substance. They started off using something else, resulting in
what would they have been using?
Absolutely, it's real traditional. We'll normally see individuals start off with tobacco. That puts them in the environments and around the people that are using alcohol, which puts them in the environments around the people that are using marijuana. That's the sort of progression that we'll see normally in that order, leading to other substances like methamphetamine and cocaine.
Shirley, when you're working with adults, they have siblings, they have children,
Right.
they have relations. How do you approach sort of that prevention side and that healthy side? Because we don't want to see generational problems with substance abuse. Is there a way in the context of dealing with treatment to help mitigate that, to help get messages down to the children and families to reduce those risks?
I think part of our role is to educate the patient on what their substance use disorder is and what the symptoms are and how their choices have affected their family. I also think that it's necessary for family members and concerned others, significant others, to be involved in the treatment process. So they too are learning about substance use disorder, what they should be looking out for with their loved one, but also maybe within their own family to provide more protection.
So it sounds like you're also trying to reduce the stigma associated with this, because
Right.
we're treating it sort of like a disease, which it is. It's an illness, a disease. It leads to a lot of bad choices. This disease has a symptom. So is it successful? Can you get great integration with family? Do children learn from these experiences when they're involved in that treatment process?
I totally believe that is true,
Okay.
that family members, children, spouses they are able to learn as well as the patient. Because whether or not the patient proceeds in their recovery, that family member may learn enough that what they need to do to take care of themselves, take care of their family, to reduce risk in their children. And so it's just learning for themselves as well as for their family.
Those are really great points, and I thank you for sharing them. And when we come back after the break, I'd like you all to think about what advice you would share with parents and caregivers, as you yourselves are adults and parents and family members, to give them sort of something to think about when they need to approach some of these really tricky topics. We're going to have these comments after the break. You don't want to miss this.
CenturyLink loves to talk about their 1 gig internet, but you can't get it at Beth's house or John's house. It's not available in JoJo's neighborhood or within 100 miles of the Smith family. The truth is, CenturyLink 1 gig isn't for everyone. Make sure you have access to the fastest. Switch to Mediacom Extreme and get the future-forward speed you need from the 100% gigabit technology network, the fastest for everyone.
1 gig is the future, and Mediacom provides the most complete coverage. America's first 100% 1 gig technology network, offering gigabit speeds in every market we serve. In town or out of town, big city or rural, you've got access to the fastest. We know the future will demand more speed, so we've built a network to give you the most. 1,500 communities, 2.7 million homes, 100% 1 gig.
After the rain stops and the wind dies down, when the fire's gone out and the dust settles, we rise up together and become a force of nature all our own. As part of this community, Mediacom stands with you, doing everything we can not only to restore your service, but to help provide emergency communication access, assist relief efforts, and support our neighbors.
AT&T loves to talk about their 1 gig internet, but you can't get it at Beth's house or John's house. It's not available in JoJo's neighborhood or within 100 miles of the Smith family. The truth is, AT&T 1 gig isn't for everyone. Make sure you have access to the fastest. Switch to Mediacom Extreme and get the future-forward speed you need from the 100% gigabit technology network, the fastest for everyone.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad, and our final segment where our guests get to really talk about issues important to you. We're tackling a major problem, substance abuse in children. We can't fix it in the short time we have here, but we can offer some advice that may help you. Let's see what our experts have to say. Jennifer, this is a complicated landscape to get parents to connect with children, especially about stuff they know nothing about. What can you give them as advice?
You know, I think it's going to be different for every parent and every child, but I mean, I think starting with whatever they are interested in, and you know, a little humor. And so it's not so, you know, such a serious thing, but like if they've maybe joke a little bit about, you know, if they don't want to talk to you about their day, say, well, you know, maybe some crazy thing that you think might have happened that day, and maybe they'll, you know, say, no, it was this, you know, I don't know, but just get them talking about their day. I just think whatever parents do, as long as they're trying, I mean, that is prevention. Working, you know, your heart, your caring, and giving your time. That, and then also looking at yourself. If that, you know, if you've got an issue going on, your example, what's going on in your life, you need to take care of that so you can take care of your kids. So if it's treatment works that as well. There's more kids saying that they have family members with a substance use problem, increasing numbers happening in Iowa, and we need to keep working on this issue.
Now, as a mom, do you need to use those bad words like marijuana, alcohol, opioids,
Yes.
cocaine? You need to use those.
You need to talk
you need
about
to be
it.
direct with kids about
Yeah,
this.
also be, and age appropriate. I mean, you should
Okay.
start talking when they're really little, and so maybe you don't need to talk about all those specifics. But yeah, as you get older, so it's important to learn yourself, so you know what the difference is. Like we mentioned THC, that you know the psychoactive part of marijuana. Know what the percentages are now. That it's increasing. It's not what it was back when I was in high school.
Great points. We
Okay.
have to keep everybody educated. Shirley, what would you give as advice?
I would say that substance use disorder isn't someone else's problem. I think it's happening in many families, and that not to approach it as someone else's children or someone else's family is having the problem. It could be happening in your own family, and that you need to really educate yourself about substance use disorder and what the symptoms are so that you can provide your children real information. Because they're always watching us, they're always paying attention to what we're doing, and sometimes our beliefs and attitudes will come across to them. So educating yourself and recognizing it's not someone else's family, it's not someone else's child that's having a problem, it could be your own.
Yeah, nobody really thought that to be a parent you need to learn about all the risks children face, but the world is changing. Matt, what would you share with our viewers?
I would say there's two concepts that would be very important for these families if they're going to have these conversations with their teens. And the first one would be trust. Now, there has to be somebody involved with this conversation that the patient, that the kid, that the adolescent, the teen trusts, so that they can really accept what's coming at them. So if you can get somebody like that, whoever it is involved in this conversation, that they trust, that's really going to help moving that conversation forward, and it might mean a little bit more to them. And the other one is hope. To make sure that these families understand we still need to instill hope in the idea that things can improve, things can change, things can get better, things can be different in a way that's still important to everybody involved with making these changes with substances. So finding someone that they trust and holding out hope for them, there's a couple of key concepts, I believe.
What a fantastic finish to a great show. You're certainly going to help our viewers deal with these issues. Thank you for joining us today, and keep your eye on Mediacom MC22 for our next episode, where we explore Iowa stories of survival, hope, and inspiration, only on Mediacom MC22, your local programming leader.
Or someone you care about are looking for help with treatment or recovery, there is help out there. Please visit these sites.